This is Poland in 2017. And there are dark clouds descending upon its capital. What was supposed to be a celebration of Poland's Independence Day, engulfed by tens of thousands of right-wing demonstrators chanting slurs, signs reading "White Europe" and "Clean Blood." This is what European nationalism looks like. It's angry, it's loud, and it's on the rise. Across Europe, this ultra-conservative rhetoric now seeping out of the fringes and into the mainstream. We all know about Europe's dark history of hate. Following the migration crisis, there's been a resurgence in right-wing thought.
This is the culture we have in Europe. We don't have an Islam culture here.
Nationalists are getting back into mainstream politics. From the streets of Germany to packed stadiums in France, battling to regain what they say their countries are losing.
Nous sommes tout d'abord sous la menace d'une dilution de notre identité nationale.
Their traditional identity, their culture, their heritage. And yesterday, that message amplified with a click of a button, this time in the United States, when President Trump tweeted a string of inflammatory videos purporting to show violence being committed by Muslims.
Mr. President, why have you been retweeting anti-Muslim videos?
The three videos originally shared by an anti-Islam ultra-nationalist party called Britain First, a group known for hate-filled incitement. Jayda, Fransen, the group's deputy leader, then thanked the president.
I'd like to start by saying how delighted I am that, as the leader of the free world, you took the time out to retweet 3 of my videos.
Donald Trump retweeted 3 of my tweets because he wanted to raise awareness on issues regarding immigration and lack of border control.
But condemnation came swiftly from Britain's highest office.
Britain First is a hateful organisation.
A rare rebuke from the country's closest ally. But Fransen argues her movement is based not on hate, but on the feelings of ordinary citizens.
You're seeing a side of politics that has actually been on the back foot for a long time, and that is the patriotic, common sense, everyday man that's saying, you know what, I live in the UK, I wish I'd be put first before immigrants.
And it turned out the attacker in this video was not a Muslim migrant after all. The embassy of the Netherlands saying the attacker was actually Dutch, tweeting to the president, "Facts do matter." Yet the White House doubled down, denying the president was pushing anti-Muslim propaganda.
So it doesn't matter if the video is fake?
Look, I'm not talking about the nature of the video. I think you're focusing on the wrong thing.
Instead, making a case for national security.
The threat is real, and that's what the president is talking about, is the need for national security, the need for military spending, and those are very real things. There's nothing fake about that.
This is a refrain that echoed throughout our trip across Europe. We're on our way to Graz in southern Austria. It's actually a part of the country which has quite a long history of right-wing extremism. Today, porous borders and changing demographics seem to be reviving some of those views.
Stop the immigration at first and to keep going on the remigration, because I think that's one of the most important things then.
Re-immigration?
Re-immigration also, yes.
What does that mean?
To bring the people back, or to give them a motivation to go back to their countries.
Luca Kerbel is the 26-year-old head of the nationalist identitarian group here in Graz. He was quick to point out what he says led to his black eye.
There was an attack from Muslims. We stand on the square and they attacked us from behind. And there was no reason before.
So they attacked you? You're saying that Muslims attacked you?
Yeah.
Since he didn't go to the police, there's no way to substantiate this claim. To spread their ideas beyond their circle, Kerbel says there are 300 members in Austria. The group organizes public stunts like this one.
One of the most important principles in our movement is to keep calm, to make actions but peaceful, provocate but peaceful.
This night they set up papier-mâché dolls, what they've dubbed multicultural zombies, on the steps of the Green Party headquarters. It wasn't a huge event, but I think the point is that they documented it and they're going to share it on social media with all the other groups like them across Europe. And the point of this is it's kind of building up a fraternity of nationalists, if you like, each of them protesting for what they believe is European culture in peril. Kerbel insists his views are not bigoted.
I don't have a feeling of supremacy because I'm white. Christians and Muslims have the same God.
Yeah, of course.
They just beat themselves in the way of... My believing is the better one. It's not a thing.
Yeah. I think for people watching at home, I think they might think that the logic starts to run out when you say that you don't think that your culture is better, but they should leave.
It's my own culture. It's the culture of my parents, of my anchors, and we have a duty anyway to keep going on.
Next, we head to Hungary, one of the oldest countries in Europe. 2 years ago, one of the landmarks here became an icon of the refugee crisis. This is the Keleti train station in Budapest, and it was here that a couple of years ago, thousands of migrants and refugees from North Africa and parts of the Middle East were stopped from making their way further into Europe. Pictures of people crammed onto trains and waiting outside made headlines around the world, and I think it was those pictures that really crystallized the idea amongst the far right and their supporters that Europe was somehow under attack. These images bolstering the right-wing party already in office, the country becoming a de facto base for right-wing thinkers from across Europe. What we're discovering is that there's kind of two groups in this kind of right-wing movement in Europe. There's the kind of young guys, the young activists, like the identitarians that we met in Austria, and then there are the kind of bigger players, the bigger thinkers, if you like. And one of them is a guy called Daniel Friberg.
Nice to meet you. I'm good, thanks.
Earlier this year, Friberg partnered in a website venture with Richard Spencer, the self-proclaimed white nationalist. Now one of the most recognizable faces of the so-called American alt-right movement.
Hail our people! Hail victory!
He was propelled to the national spotlight after this video showing his audience throwing the Nazi salute went viral.
You will not replace us!
And Friberg was in attendance at the Charlottesville rally.
It's basically a global phenomenon, and the American alt-right is heavily inspired by the new right from France and Germany and Belgium, especially. The identitarian movements all across Europe.
Friberg has long been a leading figure of the Swedish Right, the founder of Arctos, said to be the world's largest distributor of far-right literature. Tell me what you believe to be wrong currently with Western politics.
Everything. Well, obviously mass migration, the great replacement, which is what we are experiencing in Europe today.
You feel like you're being replaced by...
I don't feel like it. I know that we are, because I know how to read statistics. People of childbearing age. 47% of this segment are already non-European in Sweden. If that is not replacement, I don't know what is.
Friberg claims there's one important difference between the nationalist movements in the USA and Europe.
In Europe, we don't use the term white, for obvious reasons. That's not people's primary identity.
Right.
People identify as Swede.
But in the States, they talk about white people.
For a good reason, because white and black in the US is kind of household words.
But the ethnic background of being white is the thing that differentiates people from, let's say, immigrants and refugees and asylum seekers.
But we use the word European and non-Europeans. Because that makes more sense for us.
But Joe Mulhall, a senior researcher from the British Hope Not Hate campaign, says the immigration argument is masking the real message.
They think that that's a message that will sell and that will work, and perhaps they're correct. There's high levels of concern around those issues in Europe. We have to look at actually what the identitarians are talking about.
Being there, speaking to these young people, a lot of them will say, we're not fascists, this is not a Nazi movement, this is not classical right wing, this is just about migrants and our identity. Isn't that a legitimate argument?
We have to have discussions around the levels of immigration, etc. What we're seeing in these movements, as I say, is fundamentally different to that. So their ideas are fundamentally rooted in European fascist thought. They're racist, Islamophobic. Often they're still extremely anti-Semitic, homophobic. There's a whole package here about what these groups are propagating that goes well beyond saying it's just about the levels of immigration.
Back in Poland, on streets where the scars of a war waged by fascists still run deep, hints of those sentiments re-emerging. It's a rather interesting display of books here. You see there's one here called Homo Terror. Another one I think is probably about the Jewish lobby in Poland. Kind of literature you'd normally see outside a church. What is this one about?
Homo Terror. Homo Terror.
Homo Terror. On this day, there aren't crowds clamouring for these books. And despite the strong showing at this Independence Day rally, these demonstrators remain in the minority for now. Yet with every chant, every footstep and every tweet, their message is growing louder. For Nightline, I'm James Longman in Warsaw.